You're not just a clean freak. If seeing a crumpled paper towel on the floor makes your blood pressure spike, it's not a personality quirk. It's your nervous system actively scanning for mortal threats. Let's talk about the biological glitch happening right inside your skull. Why does your brain demand a spotless, perfectly organized room? Just to feel physically safe? Because to your nervous system, a mess isn't just ugly. It is a relentless, continuous assault of visual data. It violently drains your cognitive bandwidth before you even start your day. You've been gaslighting yourself, telling yourself it's a personality flaw, when in reality, your physical environment is acting as a low-level neurotoxin. In applied social neuroscience, a room is never just a passive backdrop. It is a continuous array of sensory data actively attacking you. Every misplaced item demands calculation. Every pile of clothes forces your visual cortex into an absolute overdrive, until finally, your prefrontal cortex fails and your amygdala hijacks the system, flooding your bloodstream with cortisol, trapping you in a state of hypervigilance inside the very walls of your home. We are going to decode the exact architecture of this biological panic. We will define the vital concept of true sensory safety, and we will explore why the cortisol awakening response is making you wake up utterly exhausted. This isn't about tidying up for guests. This is about neurohygiene. It's time to learn how to silence your brain's false alarms forever. Society has sold you a very convenient and very toxic lie. They tell you that your anxiety over a messy room is just a sign that you are deeply neurotic or obsessive. But your brain does not care about aesthetic perfection. It only cares about energy conservation. And a messy room is a massive energy leak. Enter the crucial psychological concept of cognitive bandwidth. Think of it as a strictly finite reservoir of mental resources, dedicated entirely to your high-level executive functions. When you stand in a cluttered space, your visual cortex does not just see a static photograph. It sees a relentless, demanding checklist of unfinished physical projects. That jacket thrown over the chair? It is not just a piece of fabric to your brain. It is a micro-task actively screaming for spatial resolution. Where does it go? Should I wash it? Do I even have room in the closet? Every single object out of place requires a subconscious, high-energy spatial calculation from your brain, and your default mode network is running these equations constantly, even when you are just sitting on the couch trying to relax.
The pressure is immense.
This silent background processing triggers severe, invisible decision fatigue.
Anymore.
You are experiencing ego depletion before you even step out of your front door. Your finite daily energy is being entirely consumed by the visual noise of your own sanctuary. You aren't inexplicably tired because you are weak. You are tired because your prefrontal cortex is running a marathon while you are just sitting still. Your brain is quite literally running out of fuel before you even begin. To understand this physical panic, we must look at evolutionary biology. Your brain was engineered by evolution to strictly prioritize survival. It constantly scans the horizon for visual anomalies. In the wild, a sudden broken branch usually means a hidden predator. Your nervous system still operates on this exact same primitive algorithm. When you stare at a messy room, you're actually looking at hundreds of completely unresolved visual anomalies. This instantly triggers what neuroscientists call the biased competition theory of attention. Every single object actively fights to gain representation in your brain. Your prefrontal cortex has to manually suppress all of this useless data, but the system has a limit. When the clutter is too dense, the prefrontal cortex becomes completely overwhelmed, and it simply shuts down. This is where the architecture of panic takes complete control. Incoming visual data hits your thalamus, which normally sends it up the high road for slow logical processing. But with your logic center completely paralyzed by the visual noise, the thalamus panics. It reroutes. It shoots the signal down the low road directly into the amygdala. This creates a sudden, violent biological glitch that is now clinically known as a severe amygdala hijacking. Your brain's primal threat detector falsely assumes the absolute worst-case scenario. It immediately commands your sympathetic nervous system to trigger fight or flight. Adrenaline spikes. Your heart races. Your body is now literally preparing to fight off a deadly unseen predator. But there is no predator. It is just a pile of laundry. Because the logical filter failed, you cannot rationally calm yourself down. You are trapped in physical panic. Your own chaotic living environment has now successfully convinced your neurobiology that you are in immediate mortal danger. The amygdala hijack is a sudden, violent reaction meant to end quickly. But what happens when the visual threat of your chaotic environment is completely chronic and never actually disappears? Your brain activates a much slower, completely devastating biological system. The HPA axis begins flooding your system with the stress hormone cortisol, and this is where your exhaustion morphs into a chronic, physical disease. In a healthy neuroendocrine system, your cortisol levels follow a perfect, predictable physiological curve every single day. It peaks to wake you up and drops low at night. But research shows that living in a visually cluttered space fundamentally breaks this natural diurnal rhythm entirely. The visual mess acts as a continuous, 24/7 subconscious stressor. Your nighttime cortisol never drops, violently delaying your natural melatonin release. When your bedroom is filled with unfolded clothes and towering stacks of entirely unresolved physical items, it is the very last overwhelming visual data your brain processes. Even during deep, slow-wave sleep, your exhausted brain is still working. It attempts to map the spatial memory of the chaotic room, leading to severe micro-arousals all night. You are trying to rest inside an active biological threat zone. Then comes the morning. Enter the critical phenomenon known as the cortisol awakening response. Normally, cortisol surges 50% right after waking to give you the mental sharpness to face the day. But opening your eyes to a chaotic mess instantly triggers acute stress anticipation instead of natural energy. This visual noise either causes your cortisol to painfully skyrocket, or, even more dangerously, the awakening response becomes completely and entirely blunted. A blunted response is a clinical biomarker of severe allostatic load. Your adrenal glands are depleted. This is exactly why you wake up with crippling brain fog. Your physical environment has acted as a neurotoxic agent, poisoning your biological starting line every single morning. To permanently escape this loop, we must turn to polyvagal theory. Your nervous system operates on a ladder. A chaotic room traps you in the middle sympathetic tier. You feel anxious, restless, driven by a frantic need to clean or flee. But if the clutter is chronic and impossible to solve, you fall to the absolute bottom. This is the dorsal vagal state. A total, paralyzing autonomic collapse. You sit paralyzed in the mess, calling yourself lazy when your body's actually playing dead. It is a severe physiological shutdown, triggered by a hostile environment. The only biological cure is engineering a state of true sensory safety. Sensory safety is the deliberate reduction of visual data to prevent your nervous system from defending itself. It pushes you back into the calm ventral vagal state. This brings your heart rate down and finally unlocks your prefrontal cortex for complex creative thought. Decluttering is not just an aesthetic chore. It is medical neurohygiene. We achieve this through cognitive offloading, transferring spatial memory directly to the architecture of the room. Use opaque, monochromatic storage to completely hide the complex visual noise. This immediately removes the targets of biased competition, saving massive amounts of energy for your brain. Maintain clear horizontal sight lines. To reduce exhausting rapid eye movements entirely. When a room shifts from chaos to order, the physical relief is incredibly rapid and clinically measurable. Your hypothalamus immediately stops the false alarm. Slashing cortisol levels. Your prefrontal cortex regains its lost bandwidth, instantly restoring your deep focus, memory, and emotional stability. You are not crazy. Clear the noise, silence the amygdala, and finally reclaim your true mind.